Welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance. In this video, my new boss told me to stop worrying about safety and just focus on saving money. So I did exactly what she asked for. By the time the investigation was over, her cost-cutting genius had cost our company $1.2 million and nearly destroyed everything we had built. Here is how following her orders to the letter became the most expensive lesson she would ever learn. Let's dive right into the video. The first one is titled, Site Super demands our tools are properly organized. So we followed his exact instructions, posted on r/MaliciousCompliance. So I've been doing construction for 15 years. Our crew of 8 had been working this office complex project together for 18 months with a good supervisor who was easy to work with and trusted us to do our jobs. The super was in his 60s and was about to retire. The last night we had an awesome night out to see him off after a long career for his well-deserved retirement. The next week his replacement arrived. Derek. Fresh out of construction management school, maybe 24 years old with exactly one previous job site under his belt. The dude shows up with a clipboard and an attitude. After a week of observing us, which seemed to involve texting back and forth with his girlfriend while commenting on our work, Derek called a meeting and announces a new rule. Every tool must be returned to its designated position immediately after each use. No exceptions. Anyone who's actually done construction knows this is insane. When you're hanging drywall, you use your drill, then your level, then your pencil, then your tape measure, and then back to the drill. Putting each tool away after every single use would triple your work time. I tried explaining this, but Derek was not interested in input from people who had been doing this since before he was a gleam in his daddy's eye. So we gave Derek exactly what he wanted. Monday morning, we started putting every single tool back in its designated spot after every single use. Installing one outlet became a 45-minute task. Grab the drill, use it, walk back to the toolbox, organize it perfectly, grab level, use it, walk back, organize it perfectly, repeat for every single tool. What normally takes 10 minutes is now taking 45 minutes, but our tools were perfectly organized at all times. By Tuesday afternoon, Derek was getting frantic calls about why we were so far behind schedule. He came over, red-faced, demanding to know what was taking so long. Just following your efficiency protocols, boss. Every tool back immediately after use, just like you said. Derek tried backpedaling, saying he meant, when you're done with the task. I pulled out my phone and played back the recording of his speech where he specifically said, immediately after each use, no exceptions. By Thursday, the project manager was on site asking why productivity had dropped by 75%. When he found out about Derek's tool policy, he looked at Derek like he had grown a second head. Derek got transferred the following Monday. Our old super came back to fill in until a replacement could be found. Took one look at us obsessively organizing tools and said, cut it out, you idiots, we've got work to do. We finished 2 weeks ahead of schedule. And yeah guys, if you have ever been faced with such a situation at work, let us know about it in the comments. I would love to hear your story. Also, while you're at it, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, since that would help me tremendously. 1000 plus likes would be absolutely awesome. So the next one is titled, I obeyed my ignorant entitled boss and it cost the company $1.2 million. I've been working at the same mobility device manufacturing company for over 5 years now. Things have been going great until my former supervisor retired and the new one took over several months ago. My previous supervisor was the kind of leader who was not afraid to get his hands dirty during busy periods. They would help with clients, answer phones, and even make fresh coffee after taking the last cup. Well, the new supervisor operates completely differently. She likes to take extended lunch breaks for personal appointments, hair, nails, shopping, often stretching what should be an hour into 3 hours. She never compensates by staying late or working weekends. What makes this even worse is that she is severely underqualified for the position. Word around the office is that she got the job through family connections because her spouse has significant influence with our parent company's board of directors. Our company manufactures various mobility devices, and we've always prided ourselves on exceeding industry safety standards. We maintain FDA 510K clearances for our wheelchairs and mobility scooters, and our ISO 13485 certification requires strict quality management protocols. My previous supervisor used to personally oversee the monthly compliance testing where random products came off the production line for stress testing and quality verification. As the procurement specialist, I was responsible for sourcing materials and components, but the supervisor always double-checked shipments and maintained relationships with both suppliers and distributors. The workplace felt collaborative until the new supervisor arrived. She seemed to care only about throughput, materials coming in, finished products going out, profit margins maximized. Several weeks into her tenure, I noticed our primary metal supplier had been switched to a different vendor. The steel tubing and aluminum components looked identical, but felt different. Lighter weight, slightly different finish. I decided to bring this to her attention. I need to discuss the latest shipment of structural materials, I told her. The specifications appear different from our usual supplier. I found a vendor offering the same materials at 30% below our previous costs, she replied. That translates directly to improved quarterly margins. And well guys, we all know, screw safety and everything else, it's all about the quarterly margins, for Karens at least. Anyway, did you verify the metallurgical specifications match our engineering requirements? I asked. Our ISO certification requires documented material traceability. Why would I need to verify everything twice? She responded dismissively. The purchase orders specify the correct alloys and grades. If suppliers cannot meet basic specs, that's their liability issue. Well, our products require specific tensile strength ratings for FDA compliance, I explained. Have these materials undergone our standard incoming inspection protocols? Look, I reviewed the compliance requirements with our remaining QA staff, she said curtly. We are only mandated to conduct formal testing quarterly. The previous supervisor was just wasting time and money with excessive testing. Our QA department had been severely understaffed since our lead inspector left for another company 3 months earlier. Corporate had approved hiring a replacement, but the new supervisor kept delaying the process, claiming she could streamline operations with fewer personnel. And yeah, that always works, clearly. The remaining QA technician was overwhelmed trying to handle inspections for our entire product line. Those additional tests help differentiate us from competitors, I replied. Our customers trust our quality because we exceed minimum requirements. Don't lecture me about what the previous supervisor did, she snapped. I'm implementing efficient practices that maximize profitability. Focus on your assigned duties, sourcing materials within the budgets I approve. Do that successfully, and you might see a performance bonus next review cycle. I'm more concerned about potential safety issues rather than personal bonuses, I said. Well, then you're demonstrating poor business judgment, she retorted. The previous supervisor was an antisocial workaholic with no life outside this building. I refuse to operate that way. Everything is functioning properly. Materials arrive, product ship, revenue flows. Everyone should focus on their specific responsibilities. This conversation is over. I have important meetings to attend. I returned to work feeling frustrated and concerned. I could observe differences in the materials being incorporated into wheelchairs, walkers, mobility scooters, and other equipment. The finished products looked virtually identical after complete assembly, so customers would not notice anything initially. Whether that was positive or negative weighed heavily on my mind. I wanted to arrange independent testing of our current materials versus previous specifications, but the supervisor had made her position clear. As part of my regular duties, I maintained detailed procurement records, supplier information, material certificates, cost comparisons, and delivery schedules. This documentation was required for our ISO certification audits, so keeping thorough records was standard practice, not unusual behavior. I began including more detailed notes about our conversations regarding material changes and quality concerns. I could not ignore potential safety issues, so despite her explicit instructions, I attempted several more discussions with her over the following weeks. I sent detailed emails outlining my concerns and left voicemails when she was unavailable. She consistently dismissed me though and ignored my electronic communications. Finally, I decided I wanted to escalate the matter through proper channels. However, when I contacted our quality assurance department, I discovered they were operating with minimal staff. The lead QA inspector position had been vacant for months, and the remaining technician was struggling to keep up with mandatory testing requirements. The previous supervisor had been working closely with QA to maintain our certifications, but the current supervisor seemed to view quality control as an unnecessary expense rather than a regulatory requirement. This discovery left me in an impossible situation. I could continue raising concerns that would be ignored, or I could follow explicit orders from my supervisor. Since she was my direct manager and could terminate my employment, and since comparable positions were scarce in our geographic area, I felt trapped. I decided to continue my standard documentation practices and follow her instructions precisely. Here is where the malicious compliance began. She had explicitly told me multiple times to focus on your assigned duties, sourcing materials within the budgets I approve, and to stop questioning her decisions. So I did exactly that. When she approved purchase orders for materials from cheaper suppliers, I processed them without additional commentary. When she rejected my suggestions for additional incoming material inspections, I stopped making them. When she then eliminated our premium suppliers to maximize cost savings, I found even cheaper alternatives and presented them for approval. "You have found an even less expensive aluminum supplier?" she asked when I presented a new vendor option. "Correct, they are offering another 15% reduction from our current vendor," I replied. "Excellent, process the switch immediately." I knew this supplier had inconsistent quality records, but she had repeatedly emphasized that cost was the primary consideration. I also began following her efficient practices philosophy in other ways. When she said additional testing was wasteful, I stopped recommending any quality checks beyond the minimum required for our certifications. When she emphasized speed over thoroughness, I accelerated our procurement cycles, reducing the time available for proper vendor evaluation. "Why are we receiving materials so quickly now?" she asked after a few weeks of this approach. "Well, I eliminated the extended vendor evaluation periods that you deemed unnecessary," I explained. "This allows us to switch suppliers immediately when better prices become available." "Perfect. This is exactly the kind of efficiency I expect." I continued this malicious compliance for several months. Every time she criticized excessive quality measures, I found additional ways to reduce oversight. When she complained about wasteful supplier relationships, I switched to the cheapest available vendors regardless of their track record. When she dismissed my safety concerns as poor business judgment, I stopped raising any concerns whatsoever and simply executed whatever cost-cutting measures she approved. The supervisor actually praised my improved attitude and business focus. She even mentioned me positively in departmental meetings, citing my procurement cost reductions as examples of proper efficiency initiatives. I was following her instructions perfectly, focusing solely on costs while ignoring everything else she had told me to disregard. During this period, I took my planned vacation time partly because I genuinely needed a break from the stress of this situation. When I returned, I noticed that production had accelerated even further. The supervisor had apparently pushed for increased output during my absence, and the manufacturing team was working with the cheapest materials I had sourced according to her specifications. Several weeks after my return, reports began circulating about product failures in the field. Initially, these were dismissed as isolated incidents: a wheelchair frame showing stress fractures, mobility scooter wheels failing prematurely, and walker joints loosening unexpectedly. However, the situation escalated when a customer was seriously injured after their wheelchair frame failed while navigating a curb cut, causing them to fall forward and fracture their left wrist and collarbone. Additional failures followed, customers stranded when mobility devices malfunctioned, caregivers struggling with equipment that broke during normal use, and medical facilities reporting unusual failure rates with our products. An investigation was initiated by federal regulators, and our company faced scrutiny from both the FDA and OSHA. The regulatory process moved slowly, taking nearly 8 months before formal findings were issued. During the investigation, all relevant personnel were questioned under oath. I provided complete documentation of every material sourcing decision, supplier changes, and communication with my supervisor regarding quality concerns. My standard procurement records showed a clear timeline, the supervisor's cost-cutting mandates, my warnings about potential consequences, and her explicit instructions to prioritize price over quality considerations, and my subsequent compliance with those directives. The investigation revealed that our products had been manufactured using materials that did not meet our own engineering specifications for months, directly resulting from procurement decisions made under the supervisor's direction. The federal regulators determined that the supervisor had prioritized cost reduction over safety requirements, ignored employee warnings about quality issues, and failed to maintain adequate oversight of critical manufacturing processes required for our FDA clearances. Our company was hit with devastating financial consequences, and the regulatory fines totaled $200,000 plus, substantial for our mid-sized company, but not unprecedented for safety violations in medical devices. The mandatory product recall, covering everything manufactured during the affected period, cost $600,000 in direct expenses, replacement units, shipping, labor, administrative costs, and so on, combined with the legal fees, settlement payments to injured customers, and lost revenue from suspended operations during the recall period. The total financial impact reached $1.2 billion over 18 months. The company terminated the supervisor immediately after the investigation concluded, but the damage was done. Insurance covered some costs, but our premiums increased significantly for the following years. Several major distributors cancelled their contracts due to reputation concerns. The financial hit was so severe that layoffs became necessary, and our annual bonuses were eliminated for 2 consecutive years while the company recovered. Rather than promoting me, company leadership hired an experienced quality director from outside the company to oversee both procurement and quality assurance. They acknowledged that my documentation had been crucial in demonstrating that I had followed proper procedures and raised legitimate concerns through appropriate channels. I remained in my procurement role but worked closely with the new quality team to implement improved supplier evaluation procedures. We hired additional QA personnel and implemented new checks preventing any single person from overriding safety protocols without proper documentation and approval processes. The supervisor was terminated for gross negligence and poor judgment, but the evidence showed that I'd been following her direct orders while attempting to raise legitimate concerns through proper channels. The company absorbed the full financial impact of her decisions, and the recovery process took nearly 3 years to fully restore our reputation and financial stability. I had given her exactly what she asked for: efficient procurement focused solely on cost reduction, without the wasteful quality measures and excessive supplier oversight she had criticized. The malicious compliance was perfect. I had followed her instructions precisely, and the predictable consequences of those instructions had cost the company $1.2 million and nearly destroyed our reputation. The company eventually recovered its reputation through improved quality control and transparent communication about the changes we implemented. Our customers deserved better than what they had received during that period, and I was determined to ensure they would get it going forward. And yeah guys, if you enjoy these malicious compliance stories, please let me know in the comments, because your feedback is very much appreciated. The next one is another fantastic malicious compliance story that is titled "Clock in and out according to your contract." Sure thing, boss. So I was reading a post today about some absurd rules bosses made. Reminded me of an a-hole of a manager I used to work with. Not actually report to though. So I used to work in an office in a training department. My manager was super chill, and she didn't care much about my schedule and hours I was doing, as long as I did the hours my contract set and did not take a mick. I used to come in at around 7:30 AM every day. I did not start until 8 AM, but I would come in, say hello to a few people, make myself a cup of tea, maybe have a quick chat with someone. I would then start working at around 7:50 AM, still 10 minutes before my start time, and I should finish work at 4:30 PM, but quite often I would really stay until 4:45 PM or sometimes go home at 4 PM, but the following day I'd stay longer, so my hours in a working week would still add to what they are supposed to. My awesome manager went on maternity leave, and then they gave us some a-hole wannabe manager who hasn't had a clue about us or our job. Since my manager was away, we all had to report to the a-hole. She hated us. For some weird reason, she hated our department and everyone in it. Never said why though. Very quickly she realized I was doing weird hours and pulled me in the office. She started saying all this crap on how I'm stealing company's time and money, how I'm unprofessional, and how she's gonna put her foot down and make me work properly, whatever that means. I tried to listen to her and asked her questions, but she started to say that, "One more word and you're out." Okay, cool, you're a prick, that's great. So I ask, what is it that you want me to do? And she says, do the hours that are stated in your contract. Okay, cool. So to clarify, I ask, does that mean I have to start at 8 AM and finish at 4:30 PM every day? She rolled her eyes, looks at me like I'm stupid and says, it's not that hard. Your contracted hours is what I want to see on your timesheet, not this nonsense you've been doing. Okay, fine. See, I'm petty, very petty, and I don't like a-holes, so I go home, sleep like a baby, knowing I will mess her up so much she will start losing her mind. Next day, I come to work and wait by the clock-in machine to clock in bang on 8 AM. Then I work my normal day and then I go back to the clock-in machine and wait to clock out exactly at 4:30 PM. I'm sure you already know where this is going. But wait, there's even more. My super friendly fellow co-workers realized very quickly what I was doing and decided to do the same. There was 10 of us in a team and we all gathered at the clock machine before and after the shift to clock in and out exactly at 8 AM and 4:30 PM. The a-hole manager did not realize for a while what was going on. Until she put a meeting in place at 4 PM. Well, 4 of us were in that meeting, comes 4:25 PM and all 4 of us get up while she's talking and run out to our desks. We quickly gather our stuff and run to the clock-in machine, then 1 to 2 minutes later we all clock out and go home. She did not even have time to ask what we were doing. Next day she sends us an invite for 4:30 PM and it gets rejected by everyone on my team. She sends nasty emails to all of us who rejected that we will be written up for insubordination. We forward the email to HR and ask for a meeting. The meeting happens, the HR lady listens to us, eyes wide open, then laughs, shakes her head and says, leave it with me. We go about our day and then all clock out at exactly 4:30 PM. The next day, a-hole manager is nowhere to be seen. HR lady sends an email to us asking to come see her at 2 PM. There we are informed that a-hole manager will no longer oversee our department. Actually, she will no longer work for the company due to objectives not aligning anymore with the business, whatever that means. Gossip has it that a-hole manager was always biting more than she could chew and caused issues across a few departments. She was moved around because second chances. Well, we went back to our own schedules and when our manager came back from maternity leave and was told what happened, she laughed and said that she raised us well. And yeah guys, let me know in the comments if you ever had to deal with such an awful supervisor. I hope you never have to. The next one is another malicious compliance story that is titled, The Judge Orders the Union to Only Consult with Our Employer. And we consulted. Alright. So this happened a while back with a large Australian hospital. The Friday before Christmas, senior management dropped the dreaded restructure notice, standard spiel about realignment, better patient outcomes, efficient practice, blah blah blah. They give notice to the staff and unions that consultation closes the first week of January. The new employment structure will take place in February. Under the conditions of our industrial award, the employer must make genuine consultation available where the employee has the opportunity to change the employer's mind about making them redundant. The other thing is redundancy payouts are generally good in health in Australia, with a worker with 13 years work history gets a year's pay with 113,000 Australian dollars tax-free, plus entitlements such as annual leave and long service leave paid out. Each year you work, your redundancy increases in value to a maximum of 13 years. About 4 to 5%, 200 plus of staff are gonna be made redundant. The union launches into the industrial court, arguing that the time given, especially over Christmas, is insufficient. The court agrees and extends the time by 2 weeks, but issues 2 statements. Number 1, the industrial court will not slow down this restructure anymore, and number 2, it strongly reminds the unions, there was multiple, that you can only consult. Hospital management sees this as a big win and are bragging how they're gonna beat us. The unions have a combined meeting and decide that if the staff can only consult, then ask as many questions as we can. The members are asked to field as many questions as possible, and my union alone gathers 1,200 plus questions, with 700 of them being unique and another 800 to 900 questions coming from the other unions. As you can imagine, management does not respond well to our combined 2,000 plus questions. They attempt to push on. We head back to court where we remind the judge of his must consult orders. The court tells our employer that they must answer the questions. The restructure is on hold by court order. What were the questions like? Some questions were about legal ramifications due to industrial award requirements, others about professional legal standards, and some questions about day-to-day operations, and others about how they would be personally impacted. Well, the court orders both sides to meet back in a month, and hospital management must answer all the questions. We get our answers in 3 weeks' time that consist of yes, no, maybe, possibly, and unsure answers, all one-word answers. This is not genuine consultation. We head back to court and the judge is furious about the lack of real consultation. The hospital argues it's too many questions to answer, but the judge reminds them they only have to genuinely consult. Come June, we are in a legal holding pattern when hospital management declares that they are changing the restructure on feedback given and issues new restructure papers. The restructure will take place in 4 weeks' time. New restructure requires new consultation, which the hospital is not willing to do. Well, back to court, the unions go to remind the judge about genuine consultation, and we won again by just consulting. Come December, 1 year after starting all of this, the hospital hires a consultant to get the restructure done. She has the same attitude as hospital management and tries to rush through the restructure without any genuine consultation. We head back to court, and at this stage, the judge has had enough and notes the unions have played by the rules and the hospital has not. We hit back with even more questions, and the judge decides he will set down monthly meetings with him, chairing them to work through this mess. In total, the restructure takes over 3 years, with loss of a lot less jobs lost than expected. In fact, it was a fraction of jobs expected to go. In some departments, we gained jobs by arguing about workloads, etc. The vast majority of people who lost their jobs were close to retirement age and received a handsome payout. They also got 3+ years pay as the restructure took place over that time. Some of the union members had worked less than the 13 years work history maximum payout before the restructure. The 3+ years of delay increased their payouts. All we did was consult by asking questions, just as the judge ordered. And before we end the video, let's read one last funny story from r/petty revenge. This one is titled, I waited years for my chance. So we had an executive at our company who would go out of his way to screw people over if there was the slightest chance he might be blamed for something. He did it to me once and made me look incompetent to our CEO. His admin assistant actually cried when she told me what he had done. Years later, the guy finally retired. Guess who was assigned to host his retirement party? Yep. He had attended an Ivy League university back when it had been part of a weird long-term study of body types and intelligence, where all incoming freshmen had to allow themselves to be photographed in the nude. Yes, that was a real thing that happened back then. I took this bit of info and had a graphics person put the executive's face on a nearly nude, small speedo guy posing on a beach and made a big poster for everyone to sign. I presented it to him saying, "We found your freshman photo," when everyone gathered in the employee cafeteria to wish him well. Cue hysterical laughter, and yeah, it was not the send-off that he expected. And yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support, and I will see you again tomorrow. And if you are new to the channel, welcome to the Ripe Star family.